Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with Third Reich events as we continue to talk about Third Reich events and the various developments of it. Hopefully we'll get through much more of the game this time. And I want to attach them to there. Okay. Polish minority. This is an interesting development. I think this existed in and of itself, but definitely was pushed along by German agitation within Czechoslovakia. Basically over here. There was, I don't know exactly the demographics modern, but a Polish minority within Czechoslovakia, and they send a delegation to the Prime Minister to get their requests for, you know, a Polish-speaking minority. That kind of thing. Poland is behind this to some degree, from the best of my understanding and research on it. It wasn't just the locals wanting this. It wasn't just, but I think, as I said, partly because of the German agitation, Poland wanted this little bit of territory as well. And, you know, people are people, governments are governments. They're either looking out as they see the best interest of their ethnic groups or their strategic their strategic positions, and those types of elements. And I don't blame them for that, but for the, shall we say, short-sightedness, they were willing to help carve up Czechoslovakia to get these little provinces here, instead of standing beside Czechoslovakia and standing against Nazi expansion, or if you will, just German expansion. As I know I've said before, Czechoslovakia cannot stand on its own, especially once you get Austria. There was no fortifications here, but even if you did the fortifications, okay, from here to here with the mountains and fortifications, that's a maybe defendable border, and all this back into here is, you know, land growing food, people raising and having babies. You can evacuate people out here. This was very unindustrialized, but you could build some armaments factories, you know, at least, you know, bullet production or something like that. A lot of the Czech armaments were over in this area as well. But you know, this sort of strategic depth in that if you don't have to worry about defending it, it gives you more territory. Now, expand the border along here that you can easily push into here. You can easily cut this off in two, you know, and come in here and, you know, pincer movement from either side. So now this becomes a liability instead of a an asset, because it's one thing to say build a sort of fortress around with the mountains and some fortifications and some of your more industrialized heartland. Like I did say, there were a bunch of it was over here too, but a lot of it was in here. And sort of set this up as a, you know, a reasonable defensive area. If you try to defend it all the way in through here, it just becomes more of a liability. Well, go back to the earlier episode when I talked about how the Czechoslovakian army could have taken the standard German army when it was 100,000 men rather easily. We can talk about how the multi-million man SA could have changed the power balance. I know a lot of people play down that aspect, but it's more significant than most people think. Not that it would have been a good army to invade Czechoslovakia with it, though the SA did sort of do some of that. But and Poland, they did do some of that there. But I do count the SA to be a reasonable local defense militia at this time, still in 36-7. But earlier on in the 33, for very much so. But now we're seeing a shift. So Poland should have realized that we need to stand alongside Czechoslovakia, and we need to motivate France and Belgium and Britain to stand against them. But instead of that, they're actively sort of working to carve up Czechoslovakia, and do take a little bit of it when it comes down to it. So this sours their relations and disrupts national unity for Czechoslovakia. Okay, we have another thing we can be researching here. December. We need military police, so let's do that. And what do we want to do now with... Okay, we have... all of our artillery researched until 1939 that we're going to do. So we're going to go from Rheinmetall, which really helps with artillery research time, over to Mauser, which will help with our small arms research time. And more factories are online. Okay, we're going to start a production line for naval bombers, and we're going to start a production line for BF-110s, long-range fighters. Get those developing some level of proficiency, and we no longer suffering the effects of the Deutsches Stadium. The icons have gotten smaller, but they're all still very legible there. I like the way that I was sort of wondering when it was developing this, what was going to happen when I started doing more of these. And then once I got enough of them up there at once, I go, boop, they all went down small. Looks like they'll do 2 rows. Haven't quite gotten the situation where 2 rows are all at once, but I like that. That was very good. Okay. Again, sort of a little too auto-y for my taste. I like the idea of major events like the Auslösch, firing the newspaper things going around the world. I haven't made any new ones for TRE. I definitely don't want to throw all of the events at you at we're going to do naval rearmament. Not everywhere is a news event, just because if you are playing TRE as a country other than Germany, which is very likely, I know there are a few who have done it routinely in the past. You don't need to be bombarded with notifications that whatever, you know, is going on. So but I will look at making some of the more major, building a lot of these both to continue to build more things, as well as I'm going to start trading for resources very soon. And let's increase those by 2. Okay, we still need more trucks and tanks. Not even producing too many of those. Provisions. Okay, well that fills that out. And this is taken from the lines of a Los Angeles newspaper at the time. Goring orders all Jews out of Austria. This is a picture, as I talked about before, from within a day or so, if not that actual speech that they reference to it. So this disrupts national unity some. So we go down to 67. And, you know, Austria was a sort of cosmopolitan city. That Hitler didn't like that aspect of well, I should say not Austria, but Vienna, sorry, was cosmopolitan city of the sort of Austro-Hungarian Empire. Hitler did not like that, and that is partly what was behind this, and they really wanted a Germanification, if you will, of Vienna and Austria in general. Okay, we're now into 38, so we've got our that, but we're going to do this first, computer machine. And let's see, we're going to get more political power. Ribbentrop there, so we're going to do that. Okay, the Reichschancellery. They had been doing some construction, if I remember my history correctly, prior to this point, but Hitler was very unsatisfied with the plans for the expansion. Obviously, at this point, Hitler wasn't tearing down major sections of Berlin, though he eventually planned on doing so. So they were working within a small geographical area, but he wanted it much grander, and he wanted it very fast. Speer, who had originally sort of redone or whatever the Brown House in Munich for the party headquarters down there, the Brown House, really had become a friend to Hitler. He really was a friend of Hitler. They liked talking architecture and those kinds of things. I don't think they talked particularly between themselves a lot of politics, though. Speer was at the table later in times at Berchtesgadens, and Hitler was talking politics most assuredly. So Speer was very much aware of politics of what was going on, but that wasn't his main sort of focus. But he and Hitler did like talking about architecture, and this is part of the development of all of that. So he's brought in to build the Reichschancellery and build it fast, or upgrade it, update it, improve it, however you want to say it, but as part of a sort of major reworking. So you see there Speer with Goering there overlooking the model. Another view of it from of that same model, but a view of it that you can see the architectural sort of plans. This is actually sort of the entrance is right here that you drive into the courtyard here. Very long and impressive building. It was meant much more to impress foreign visitors than it was to be a Reichschancellery of business being done. It was very much, I'm sure that there were bureaucrats in there. I don't doubt it. Bureaucrats inhabit every government building. But it was very much built and designed to impress foreign diplomats. That was its function. And in that function, I think it did very well, quite honestly. We'll see a little bit more of that in the near future. You can think things are impressive and effective and not like the politics behind it. I sort of like some of the somewhat neoclassical type architecture that Hitler and Speer did. That doesn't mean I like their politics. It just means compared to some of the I don't know, I guess it looks alright, but not my taste. Of like Frank Lloyd Wright's sort of stark simplistic architecture or whatever. Not a big fan of that. Okay, we got signal companies. Okay, done that. Yeah, since I'm moving quickly, let's get that going. So, and we've lost the effects of that. It was just a brief, because that's just building one significant building, but that's not a complete reworking of things. Okay, now this is a know earlier that I was talking about the National Assembly of Czechoslovakia and that I couldn't find a picture of it inhabited. There are lots of pictures of the Reichstag. I think this is, when I researched it, I think this is a photograph done during this speech, if I remember correctly. If not, it's definitely from this period. And Hitler is right there. I'm fairly sure to make him out. That, I believe, is Goering, a sort of speaker or whatever. Part of that's from memory, part of that is from... I'm going to look at the really small picture. You can sort of tell Hitler because of the brown jacket and his crook of his arm, the way he's raising it. That's sort of his Heil Hitler as opposed to everybody else. Kind of thing. This is a speech very much focusing on Austria and Czechoslovakia. When this speech happened, Austria still existed. There were the incongruities with dysfunction, and what I want to sort of give some minimum dates for things to have happen, so you can't rush things too much. So we threaten Austria, but obviously it exists. But so we disrupt some of our neighbors. Notice we're also disrupting Italy, our relations with Italy, because Italy was very much concerned, though, and I have made some events covering, though not updated yet, of Hitler interacting with Mussolini. Mussolini at first really wanted Austria to continue to be as a buffer to Hitler. They wanted this state, this nation up here holding the Alps, and they were a fascist government as well. Not Nazis, they were fascists. That's how I would describe them. They were a fascist government themselves. Mussolini liked that. Mussolini liked that it was a buffer to German expansion. But basically Hitler put on a charm offensive and did a deal. But at this stage they were still... Italy was not. And notice I also increased the event, increased world tension because he's threatening his neighbors, and that would increase world tension, though not by a major amount. Okay, we have naval rearmament. Can't do that just yet, but still early in 38. And we're going to go this common turn pack. Okay. Let's see. We got subs, light cruisers, some convoys in production. Let's add some destroyers. We're going to switch over here. Improvements for weapons. With Mauser, that will sped up by 10%, so that's good. See, if you play this game of bouncing back and forth between various developers, you can increase your research time, or decrease your research time, or whatever you say, increase its speed. Okay, organization tote. I know I've talked about this before. Now we're really starting to get Organized Todt wasn't yet called Organization Todt, but was obviously the one building the Reich Autobahns, as well as other construction projects. There was some Todt working elements working with the Reich Chancellery, but under Speer's guidance, not under Todt. Todt was, that is, it's a pet peeve of mine. That's a mirror image. They did a mirror image of it, but that's this photograph is where they got that. And that's a black uniform they put in there. Well, that is not black. That is brown. I pointed it out to them way back when they first did this. The larger version of this photograph shows his arm and shows the swastika armband on it, and it is a deep black. Red is not darker than black in a black and white photograph or a sepia tone sort of photograph. So it shows that this is a mild brown, just the trick of the light. It's a mild brown uniform with the red, like as in down here, showing up darker than brown and sort of showing up as black, because they never used the black armband with the swastika in it. Not the German Nazis, other Nazis did some stuff like that, but I think not the German Nazis. So this is Todt. He was both a member of the SA, and that's his SA uniform, as well as a member of the Luftwaffe. Sometimes you can see him pictured in his Luftwaffe uniform, sometimes just a civilian suit. But so we will definitely say yes to this. Now if we dismiss that, call it back, you'll see here that we have the construction. Currently it's the Pioneer program. They come and go as the different programs are developed. Building the West Wall, which is civilian construction speed minus 5%. We have civilian construction factory speed at plus 10%, so that's a total of plus 5. Now that we have Todt organization set up and rolling, you get another plus 5, so we're back at a total of plus 10. So we sort of balanced out and made improvements beyond that. And so this is sort of the way I've philosophically looked at this. You're not getting your West Wall for free, but then you're also getting the benefit of the 4-year plan, which will go away either sometime in 1940 or when the war starts. That goes away. But Organization Todt, which continued through the war, you will basically get this until the end of the game. So this is Todt's organization organizing up. And I know I don't make you and won't make you have to have him as a Mr. Rommel, to help that. And we're going to take this opportunity to end this episode for multiple reasons. One, I'm going to, well, this is delayed from when I'm making it, but I will be very shortly making the events to hopefully get everything working and firing for the getting the Sudeten land and all of that element done up, so that I can get them in here and continue this series with them. So again, thank you for watching. Thanks for liking the videos here on YouTube and on Steam and wherever else you may be, and you can find it out. And of course, I really appreciate it if you just go somewhere on the web, whether it's a World War II forum or the Paradox forum or somewhere, and tell them how much you either like this channel or you like the mod. Love that kind of support. It really helps. And of course, I do want to hear your questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, how better to develop this. I'm always looking for input. Might not take it, but I'd like to hear what you're thinking, because it either sometimes I hear what somebody says and then it spurs something entirely different, different way of doing it, but it makes me think, and that helps. Or I may take the suggestion as it's put or something else, but I do like the input. We really appreciate that and want to make the best game we can for you. So thanks so much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.